Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is Joe Scarice, co-founder of the Creative Birth Strategy Podcast and House, and co-host of the podcast as well. I want to thank everybody for coming in this morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get ourselves started here in just a few minutes, and only as fast as my thumbs will go, based on being on Clubhouse at the same time of being on live on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, um, Audible. We're just about everywhere. Thanks to Mr. Yordell Perkins, my co-host and co-founder of the Creative Birth Strategy Podcast. So we'll get started here in just the next few minutes. I'm going to do a quick share and invite some people in. So we'll get rocking and rolling, and we'll be discussing the importance of budgeting for construction lending. Just keep in mind, next Saturday, we will not be having a podcast because I will be presenting at the STR conference in Kalahari, Poconos, for about 500 investors, maybe a little more. I'm not sure. They say it might be a little more than that, but 500 or 600 investors attending. Looking really forward to that and giving a good presentation on lending impacting the STR and MTR industry. So we'll get started here in just a couple minutes, just kind of thumb myself through here to invite people in and let people know that we're up and running. And then we'll thank our sponsors, of course, and get started with that as well. So first, I'd love to thank our sponsors, Mr. Yordell Perkins of Perkatech, who provides social media strategy and architecture to your website design and your social media presence. I'd like to thank Linda Pelagas with Realty 411, national publication for real estate investors throughout the country, providing also national events for real estate professionals to present and provide education to their attendees. I'd like to thank MB Capital with Eric Moss. I'm a referral partner with MB Capital for the last 10 plus years, providing unsecured business lines of credit for investors throughout the country. And then I'd like to thank Lenmark Capital, where I am a senior loan analyst providing asset-based lending nationwide to investors throughout the country in the DSCR space, multifamily, mixed use, single family to four family, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, new construction, blanket loan scenarios, advisory, and strategy. So love to get started here with a couple articles as always, because I like to always catch a couple things I miss maybe on a Saturday morning. Very interesting. Commercial Chapter 11 filings surged in July. Again, we know what's going on with our economy currently. They can astroturf all they want, but affordability and inflation is really hampering down on certain industries. Demand slipping for distressed property auctions. I feel the reason why that's slipping is because I think a lot of the wholesalers that are out there are going after these properties preliminarily, and it doesn't even get to the auction space. So I think that's a very interesting article, but I'm sure that the wholesaling environment has a strong influence in that. Let's see a couple other things here. Let's see. Equip distressed home value surged in Q2, so no loosening in values in certain markets. So there's some foreclosure trending going on in certain regions. So that this is all on the mortgagepoint.com, themortgagepoint.com. And on Mortgage News Daily, rates calmed down a little bit. We're still around that 6.5, 6.6 rate, base rate for conventional. We're at about 6.5 on the commercial investment space. So rates did come down a little bit on the commercial investment space this past week. I do foresee the 5-year Treasury moving down a little more. It does not run parallel with the Fed, so don't get all caught up with the Fed thinking that's going to be something that's going to impact the commercial rate in investments. We follow the 5-year Treasury. Also, keep in mind, conventional lenders, more the traditional lending landscape, they follow a 10-year Treasury. So the 10-year Treasury and the 5-year Treasury don't always follow the trends with the Fed. So keep that in mind when you're evaluating your numbers and trying to not crystal ball, but being realistic on what rates are going to look like. So let's get started with our subject this morning, the importance of budget construction financing and construction lending. Budgeting is a critical component in construction lending because it's directly impacting the success and the viability of construction project. Here's what some of the importance is, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Project feasibility, accurate cost estimation, a well-prepared budget ensures at all costs, including material, labor, permits, contingencies are accounted for. This helps determining whether the project is financially feasible. Loan approval, the lenders assess the budget to ensure the project is within the financial means of the borrower and that the loan amount requested is sufficient to cover the costs. So we look at a feasibility study with the appraisal if we feel the renovations are far exceeding the experience level or the imbalance of the purchase price to the renovation cost. So we as lenders, we're there to protect you as well. We're not there to harm you. We're making sure up and above the appraisal being done, looking at the after repair value, we're also taking into consideration a feasibility to the general scope of work done by the contractor. Then number two, risk management, preventing cost overruns. A detailed budget helps in identifying potential cost overruns before they occur. Lenders are more likely to approve loans for projects with well-defined budgets that include contingency plans for unexpected expenses. Mitigating lender risk. Lenders are exposed to financial risk if the project exceeds the budget. A comprehensive budget reassures lenders that the borrower has a clear understanding of the project financial requirement. I'm constantly not battling, but constantly working with clients in the BRRRR environment and the fixed flip environment to better understand with their budget, does it make sense to the value that they're trying to look at the back end? Is it making is it creating that uh, improved value based on what you're doing to the property? Then number three, cash flow management, ensuring sufficient funds. The budget outlines the cash flow requirements at um, each stage of the construction. This ensures that the borrower can meet payment obligations to contractors and suppliers, maintaining the project momentum. So draw schedules. You got to understand draw schedules and the construction budget. Construction loans are typically dispersed in stages known as draws. The budget guides the draw schedule, ensuring funds are available when needed for specific phases of the project. So, a draw schedule and the draw requirements, people don't realize there's the draw is a request of renovations that are completed. So, you need to understand that it's going to cost you about $250 a draw. So if you're doing 5 draws, you got to take into consideration, $1,000 plus more dollars into your budget that that you're going to have to. It's going to cost you to get that money out. Project monitoring, tracking progress. A budget allows both the lender and the borrower to monitor the progress of the construction budget against financial benchmarks. It helps in identifying deviations from the plan early on, allowing for timely corrective actions. Transparency and accountability. A clear budget fosters transparency between the borrower, the lender, and the contractors. It holds all parties accountable for adhering to the financial plan. Final project value. The valuation of budget impacts the final value of the completed project. Lenders want to ensure that the completed project will be worth at least as much as the total of the construction loan and other financing. And then we look at the return on investment. A well-planned budget contributes to the higher ROI by minimizing unnecessary expenses and maximizing the efficiency of the resource allocation. A detailed, realistic budget is essential for securing construction lending and ensuring project successful completion. It provides a financial roadmap, mitigation risk, and help in managing cash flow effectively. For lenders, it serves as a tool in assessing the viability of the project and minimizing their exposure to financial loss. Travis, good morning. Welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the importance of budgeting for construction lenders.
Hey, good morning. Morning, Joe. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm Travis. I've got a real estate brokerage here in the Houston area. We do residential, commercial, real estate, and we also have property management, which is what I'm involved in a lot. And yeah, we definitely do remodels and make ready like crazy. So yeah, of course, having a budget is important, right? You need to know how much you're planning on spending on a project. I think one of the things I find is, especially when, if you're getting offers or deals from wholesalers, is they throw some number out there what they think it's going to cost to redo a house, but they don't really provide any detail. And I would say that as somebody that's new to getting into this, you want to make sure that you're getting with vendors yourself and getting numbers from them to do the things that you think you want to do to the property, and really focus on what you're going to use for materials too, because the labor might cost you one thing, but I mean, depending on who you're using and who you're getting your materials from, like just countertops, for example, you could be grossly overpaying for things like countertops and cabinets if you're going Home Depot or Lowe's, the big box stores, to buy things, instead of going to a supplier that's got prefab granite or prefab quartz and RTA cabinets that you can buy. And I'm sure Justin can touch on that too. He'll know about that as well. But I do have a question for you, Joe. When you say it costs $250 to get a draw, is that because that somebody's coming out and inspecting the work every time? Like, why is a lender charging money when I've already got a loan? Why would they be charging us money to get the money to pay the vendors?
So, good question, and that's kind of an industry standard on the draw schedule. It's not like saying that we're the only one that charges that estimated number. It's somewhere between 200 and 250 because we leave the industry itself leaves the responsibility back with the AMC and the original appraiser that conducted the after repair value and looking at the construction budget. So there's a transference. It's a money grab, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not gonna. There's no way to bullshit it. Okay, so it's a money grab in the piece of the appraisal part that the AMC charges to justify whether it needs a physical inspection or a virtual inspection of completed work done. Am I saying it's fair? No. I mean, like, listen, you're paying more for your money on every draw request. I understand that. But this has been a common practice for as long as I've been in the industry. I don't see it changing anytime soon. I am seeing much more virtual draw schedules and a faster expedition of the money being wired into the client's account now that everything's going more virtual, which is I feel better. It's a 48-hour turnaround now at this point. I am seeing more feasibility studies being requested along with the appraisal because I think people feel like they got to take on bigger deals, like bigger construction projects because there's not enough inventory out there. I'm not a fan of them, especially if you don't have the experience level, because the odds of you completing that project are less. I'm still a big fan as a lender. Staying at that 50% of renovations to the purchase price, I think is a very important piece to be at, whether you're new or experienced, because you're turning properties over. You're getting that property ready to get to the next property. You're refinancing and cashing it out, or cash neutraling it and getting all your money back out, and then you go into the next one. Now, the better investors that are doing this are doing anywhere between 5 and 10 deals a quarter, and they're not taking big cash outs. They're taking what they have into it and just balancing out and getting their money back. They're not looking to take anything more than what they have into the deal, and all they're doing is rotating their money over and over and over again. And they're keeping around the 70% loan to value space and not maximizing the leverage and keeping a higher debt service and a higher cash on cash return. So that's some thoughts to add to what you're asking me, Travis. Does that completely answer your question, Travis?
Yeah. Sorry, my phone went black. Yeah, it does. Thanks, Joe. Was curious to me, like, why they charge us.
I get it. I mean, listen. I'm being honest. It's a money grab. I mean, do they have to charge you? No. I mean, they could just ask for it up front in the appraisal piece and call it a day. But I guess they don't want to put you into appraisal shock either saying, "Hey, it's going to cost you $2,000 for this appraisal," and you're like, "What?" And you're like, "Well, it also includes the 5 draws you're requesting." You know what I mean? So they're going to get the money one way or another, and you need them to spot check to make sure your contractor's not screwing you over on completed work to be done. That's another. I mean that's probably the reason why there's such a charge, because they're obviously guarding your money.
Yeah, no, I would appreciate that. That's for sure. Because if you're not over there watching your project, and when the contractor tells you they're done, and you go over there and they're not done,
Yeah.
I'm not paying you, and I can't pay you because the lender didn't give me the money because you're not done.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm sure there's that debate almost every other project. I'm like, I just don't know why people think we're working against them. Like my best client right now is the contractor that understands the budget, understands the draw schedule, and they're not debating about stuff. They know they got to complete this work. They know they got to complete it. So no ticky, no shirty. Remember that old phrase with the dry cleaners? Like, why should I pay out all that money?
Yeah.
So construction budgeting importance, Travis, and I'm going to keep moving this along. Without a budget, it will be exceedingly difficult to plan for costs, both expected and unexpected, to come along with construction project. Some things that you need to kind of keep in mind the importance of construction budgeting for a project. You need to 5 reasons why construction budgeting is important. Saves time and money, prevents the project from getting off track, sets priorities, thorough, efficient planning, and cost estimation. Now, there's hard and soft cost considerations, okay? Costs are incorporated into a construction budget are generally sorted into 2 categories. The first category is hard expenses. This category includes things that involve physical construction costs such as materials, labor, and equipment rental expenses. The other category is soft expenses. These expenses can be rather difficult to account for because they are less tangible. Soft expenses include costs such as obtaining insurance, interest from the loans, and taxes that may apply to the construction project. Remember, we're not escrowing for taxes on the property. We're not escrowing for water bill, electric bill, any of those other common area maintenance to the project. Now, we are requiring you to prepay for insurance for a year, so we're fully insured during the entire project, and you shouldn't take a full year on a project, but we're assuring ourselves that that money's going to come out of pocket. That's coming out of your pocket. That's not part of the budget. So personally, I think on any construction budget you come up with, you should be defining a 20% contingency to your numbers, not 10. I think 20% is a safer bet. And in some cases, depending on the heavy lift, maybe even 30%. Justin, good morning. Welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to a discussion, the importance of budget for construction lenders.
Yeah, good morning. Another checks and balance system involved in the process that a lot of people, you might hear people complain about in the permitting part. But it's also something that they're designed to put your contractor in check, to put yourself in check, and make sure you're building something that's safe, that's appropriate, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money later on. All of these things help you complete a project successfully. And I'll tell you, it was a mistake of me listening to GCs and contractors who were advising ways to avoid getting certain permits, avoid doing this, other draws, legal fees and withdrawals to keep stuff going. All of those things very well may, get you by, but there are also things that could potentially trip you up really, really bad in your project. And if you do get tripped up really bad in your project in one of the situations, it may be hard to continue. Depending on the lender, they may not continue to lend to you. It may be the end of where you're at, and you may have to potentially seek other financing if you're able to. So it could cause you some serious problems, not just following protocol. So I'll say to anybody, get into this, just really take your time and just follow the permit guide. Try to get to know some people at the permit office, and make sure you know and make sure you deal with that. Also, be very familiar with your lender and their process, right? That you need to be familiar with your lender's process, their draw process, right? Um, and their funding process, right? For this, some lenders do it on a reimbursement basis. Most of them do it on a reimbursement basis. Sometimes they'll give you your first draw, right? Immediately as soon as you close. But all of that has to be in your underwriting. All of that has to be understood. And obviously, with regards to your plans that you get, which you should get well before you build anything, um, is you want to have each and every sub give you a budget and a price for those plans that they can stand by and sign off on. A key on sign off on, so that they can be held accountable. Yes, prices fluctuate. All of these things have to be taken into account. But these are all safe haven. I mean, like not safe havens. I'm sorry. These are all things that you can put in place to kind of protect yourself in the construction process. And these are all things that I'll be implementing forward, plus a couple other things. Sure that I have a successful build, because remember, the product is the easiest product to refinance, to sell, but an incomplete project is the hardest thing to get rid of, and surely the hardest thing to get rid of with in a whole place financially. So those are my thoughts as important.
So Justin, I'm gonna break down some of the things that you discussed real quick, and thank you for being on here this morning. Communication and involvement with your lender when it comes to construction financing is so important. Transparency. I'll work with somebody if it makes sense, but they need to bring up. You need to bring up things ahead of time. It's not always the case that you're aware of them, but making people aware of things ahead of time. Like I had a situation where one of my clients, he somehow, and I only mentioned it 5 times during the entire process, he wasn't aware of the draw cost. He's like, "Well, Joe, can we do something about the draw cost where they can back it out of my disbursement?" I said, "Yeah, sure. You don't have to pay it up front. No problem." And he goes, "Well, listen, I'm going to need, X amount of more draws. Is there something we could do with the pricing?" I said, "Well, let me talk to the AMC and have a discussion," because he goes, "Because that'll dig into my bottom line." And I said, "Okay, let me have that discussion with them." And we work something out a little differently where it's not impacting him during the construction process. But we had that conversation up front. And also, I have deeper discussions and better understanding one's experience in the past 4 years to justify the leverage for a client. Like, everybody wants 100% financing, but they don't deserve it since they don't have any experience or the lack of. So, like, I mean, I'd love to give everybody 100% financing if you qualify, but you don't qualify. And or your credit's not there. Listen, in construction financing, having a credit score above 700 is compelling. Having at least 5 rehabs completed in the last 4 years is compelling. Whether they're flip or burr, whichever ones that we can verify, these are numbers that are going to get you to maximize the leverage on a purchase price, meaning up to 90%, and then 100% on the construction renovation based on a draw schedule. And rates are pretty competitive right now. You're hovering around 10% on the interest only, and you're looking at origination of maybe 1.5 points. That's not really bad. Working with a direct lender, that's pretty inexpensive money. Um, Brokers and correspondents are tacking on a quarter or half a point on the rate for you and making money on that, and they're tacking on 1 or 2 points on the origination, and they're probably charging you $500 more in underwriting fee, where I'm charging only $950. They're charging probably $14.95 because they're trying to make money everywhere on you. So you really need to know your lender. You need to have a very open discussion with your lender, understanding the budget. I don't send out the construction budget and draw schedule enough to people. I send it out to people complimentary. If you need it, I'll send it to you. Just email me and request for the worksheets that we provide complimentary through the Creative Burr Strategy house here on Clubhouse. I want you to be a better educated borrower. I want that borrower to keep coming back over and over and over again. To me, that I'm doing right by them. If the values are coming in on the back end, the renovation costs are clicking, they're buying it correctly, they're making money when they buy. I mean, listen, the old school technique was 65% LTV on after repair value, meaning the property was worth, 100,000. You shouldn't be in for no more than renovation and acquisition of $65,000. Now it's a 70% rule. I still live by the 65% rule because I want to take contingencies into account. And I don't need to buy every property. I don't need to have every one. I need to buy the right ones. And that's how you have to look at it as an investor when budgeting out construction renovation. Because I don't think people emphasize enough or really understand how impactful construction costs can hit the bottom line, how over leveraged you could be. Especially in the flipping world, you make one mistake, you're not flipping that property anymore. You're holding that property. Okay, you miss that window, and you miss your construction costs. You miss the timing between the electrical and the HVAC to sealing up the walls and putting the flooring down and putting all the amenities in. You're missing out on a potential time to sell. Now you have to rent the property, and you might be over leveraged. You might have money stuck in the deal. That's not my problem. I'm the lender. I'm looking at two different ways. When I ask somebody, if you don't sell the property, what are you renting it for? Oh, no, I'm going to sell it right away. I said, no, that's not my question. Do you even know what the market rent is? If you have to take that property off the market and the property does not fly off the market and does not sell, and your realtor miscalculated what they're listing the property at, or there's a problem with your finished product and you have to rent it, what is the rent? Can that cover your debt service? Well, I never thought about that. Well, you should be. You need to look at construction financing right now, not just as a flipper. You got to look at it as burr or flip. It's important to figure out which one makes the better sense for both. Bad financial project management can lead to bankruptcy and closing the business. That is why creating a budget to account for numerous construction costs is crucial. The budget then guides the projects from the beginning to the closeout. Complements, of cost estimation is building materials and equipment, labor, location, project timeline, and building codes. Emmett, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning, the importance of budget for construction lenders.
Good morning. Well, I would consider myself a former wholesaler, now just an investor and consultant, and I'm studying actual development. This is really good subject here. I'm out of the Michigan market. First, Joseph, I like to know, do you finance modular homes? Kind of fell in love with that when I attended a tour here in Romulus, Michigan, by Gengesto, which is Gengesto Development and Supplies. They're actually doing modular homes. And to me, they just practically eliminated all of my headaches with contracts, with general contractors. It's all contained inside their warehouse where they do all of the fittings inside the modular homes. I love the subject. Just looking at deals, I think it was Gilbert or no Travis that mentioned, as a previous when I used to do a ton of wholesaling and I would send out deals. Looking at the numbers, I will work the numbers backwards and just take 70 to 75% of what a property was selling for in the area, and I would subtract that from the actual price that the homeowner or investor of that project that didn't finish. I would take that 75% against the acquisition price they were asking for, and then I would walk my contractors through and subtract the repairs from that final number, and that would be the price that I would be able to provide to that homeowner or whatever the distressed property was. So I would take the repairs and subtract it. That's how I would get my number to what the maximum allowable number would be that I could offer that homeowner or that distressed property owner. So that's how I will arrive at my number. And I remember someone mentioning, wholesalers are just throwing the prices out there. We do the best of our ability, and you never know who you're selling to, and probably the reason they put numbers out there that are not very conservative because every buyer is different. They might have relationships, contract relationships with suppliers, and we don't know exactly where we're going. Mm-hmm. But that was one comment that I wanted to make to that. But this is a very good subject of actually discussing the importance of the budget for construction lending. I pay close attention to when I want to anticipate putting the property on the market as being really conservative, or when I got the biggest pool of actual buyers looking at homes out from the market, particularly when I want to exit the property, exit the deal as well. And I agree with you, Joseph, particularly about managing your budget so you can actually stay on track.
All right. So, Emmett, do you want me to answer the question on the modular, or I'm just trying to keep track of things? Yeah. So modular has not really impacted the asset-based lending world yet, because I know the concept moves along much quicker. But the problem is it's very hard to track a draw schedule where all the parts of the house are coming together at the same time. So an asset-based lender, the industry itself has not been able to get their head wrapped around modular yet. They're still looking at the brick and stick mortar build out new construction right now. Do I think modular is going to have a spot for itself in the asset-based lending space in time? Yes. I don't think it's happening now, but I think over the next couple of years, as we need speed and expedition of build outs for the need of housing, whether for rental or for home ownership, I think asset-based lending will find their niche in the modular space. It probably will be start off with a lower leverage purchase amount, and maybe a lower leverage on the construction piece where there might be a little more skin in the game. But it's not there yet. I mean, because I've inquired. We work with one of the largest hedge funds in the new construction space, and they don't have an appetite for it just yet, or they just haven't found a back end piece to buy that money off once it's on their balance sheet. So I get it. I'm a fan of what you're saying. It's just not there yet in the modular piece. I feel like there's still enough room in the new construction in buying land, getting all the soft costs done, and getting 100% vertical out there without going modular. Now, again, I could be absolutely incorrect, but I do like the modular concept. It's just not there yet. I don't see it happening in our space, our industry, at least for another year or two. And then in regards to wholesaling, obviously there's a necessary evil where I think wholesalers now foresee and see the opportunity of becoming investors, and they understand construction budgets because wholesalers will just throw numbers out there traditionally and never really put a lot of verification behind it. But now that there's so much money for the entrepreneur that doesn't need tax returns, the wholesaler is now becoming the investor, and now they're becoming a little more proficient and a little sharper and specific and measurable and achievable and relevant and time bound to a budget. So, how long have you been in the investment space and out of the wholesaling space?
I've been out of I've been in the investment space for about 3 years now.
Okay.
Been in the wholesaling side about 12 years.
Okay.
I really got my start in real estate just due to tax assessments in Detroit that weren't done, and they got done after the bankruptcy. One last part of my one last thing that I want to make a point on is that what I noticed in my talk at RIA meetings and talk to other investors, I get it, the draw schedule. I get that we try to stay on is keep there to stay on track. But what I'm finding is that it's all great. It's all gravy when we're fixing the property to burn. Right, we're fixing the property to burn, but then you get one valuation, right, at closing, and then you're down the road 6 months, the project is finished, and now it's time to go into the 30-year, and we're going to refinance out.
Yeah.
And maybe we get a ARV at the table during acquisition for $250,000, and then we get the carpet rug pulled under us by a lender, and they say, "Oh, now it's $200,000 or $230,000." And that's what kind of scares me. And I'm one that's very conservative about numbers. So I look at the runway of taxes going up 2 years and then being reassessed. I look at also the insurance is going to go up maybe 2 to 3 years down the road. So I'm not pulling out all the money. I'm not the guy pulling out all the money on the deal. I'm pulling out my acquisition money to get into the deal. Mm-hmm. What I witness happen a lot is lenders play around with the numbers.
All right.
When it's time to exit out of the deal as well.
All right.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I will. And if you could mic up, please. Thank you, Andy. So the lender has nothing to do with the appraiser. The appraiser is a third-party service that provides protection both for the individual and for the lender to verify a value. Now, saying that, if an appraiser that is not an employee of the lender and you're not happy or satisfied with that appraisal, you could always request to order a new appraisal with a new appraiser. That's at your cost. The lender has nothing to do, or very little to do, other than ordering the appraisal through the appraiser service, which is called an AMC. So I know it's easy to blame the lender on things, but the lender needs that appraisal service to order the appraisal. Then the underwriting department reviews the appraisal that comes back. Now, if it looks crappy or it's poorly done, our underwriting department will call it out and go back to the AMC and say, listen, this is really not a very good appraisal. We need better comps to be used. We're looking up comps just online ourselves, and we find better comps ourselves. So obviously we're looking to make sure that, one, the client is protected, but two, we're also taking a protection for ourselves, where I can give you a great example. I had a 5 unit where the individual bought this property. It was in a tougher area of Philadelphia, and there was a bunch of board ups in the area, and I was a little concerned. Like, can this gentleman handle this property? It's in a rougher area of Philadelphia. Um, he thinks it's worth one thing. We think it's worth another. We came close to the number, but the problem was the area wasn't safe. I mean, the high crime activity. The management company didn't have the experience level in that area. I had to turn the loan down more than anything else because my concern was that this guy was going to lose the property in time because it was going to be poorly managed out. Was that my decision making? Yes. And was that my confirmation with the client? Yes. Did I have to call him and tell him the truth? Absolutely. Now it's not, again, that's where a lender gets involved, but they only get involved once they get the appraisal back and the appraiser gives an opinion. I actually drove out to the location. Like, sometimes I fly to locations and go and see these properties because I need to better understand what I'm looking at, what the client's doing. So I'm a different type of lender. So I don't know who you work with, nor do I want to know, nor do I care to bring their names up. But the lender has nothing to do with the appraiser because that's a separate company and third party provisionary protection for all parties. And that's where I'll leave that. And I hope that answers your question. And we'll keep moving along with this discussion this morning because I think understanding budgets and initial goals and guidelines, this is a necessary measure to make sure your project stays on track. Okay, it's very important setting the priorities in the right direction. Gilbert, good morning and welcome. Brief overview: who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning: the importance of budget for construction lenders.
Hey, good morning, Joseph, Travis, Justin, Gilbert Oparanquo, managing partner of Grace Building Company. We are a development company located down in Houston, Texas. Our specialty is in 1 to 4 door new construction. So we always underwrite back to appraisals always back to rents in the area. So something I just want to reiterate that I heard earlier is, like, before you do any BRRRR or new construction lending, you have to understand the sub-market of where you're doing your project. Because if you don't understand it, you're probably going to get yourself into trouble. What I mean by that is you got to understand what the rents are in the area, if there are any restrictions against use of building, those type of details. But just to stay on topic, so one of the line items that gets people in trouble, like, we build for other clients as well. I build for myself, build to rent, have multiple doors. We do build to rent for local Houstonians and also out-of-state investors. But I'll share with you guys one of the biggest line items that gets people in trouble. You never see anybody talk about it on Instagram marketing or Facebook marketing when they talk about all the hundreds of thousands of dollars you can make selling houses. But here's the truth. The holding costs get a lot of people in trouble. But what I mean by that, in most short-term lending, as what Joseph does, most lenders, they give you anywhere from 9 months to 18 months on the loan to get projects done with 1 to 4 doors. And so the place where people get into trouble is they don't account for how long the project is going to take them, right? You always think you're going to be in and out of a project, and the mistake a lot of people make is they hire the cheapest trades, cheapest contractors, and a lot of times those guys just end up reselling the work, and it takes a little longer to get things done. You may never get it done. And so lenders, what they'll often do, as long as you're paying the interest, if you're getting near the end of the lending term and you're not done, some lenders will give you, like, all right, we'll give you 3 more months without charging you for free, right? And as long as you're paying the interest payments, they're okay. Some lenders are going to charge you an extension fee, automatically if you go too long. And so what ends up happening, as long as you're making these interest payments, you'll see these loans sometimes stretch out over a year. I've seen some go over 2.5 years, and you're consistently making these interest payments, and that's where your equity is going. So that's what gets a lot of people in trouble. And then lastly, I'd add this, since we're talking about budgets. That old saying, you make money in the buying real estate, is true, right? No offense to any realtors in the room or realtors, wholesalers, or whoever is a seller. but your acquisition price is everything. Now, why in the world would I trust a realtor to tell me what a piece of land is worth and what I can do with it? Of course, they're trying to sell the land, so they're going to sell it and try to sell it for as much as possible. So I preach to people in my area, you never want to pay more than 15% of the ARV if you're doing a 1 to 4 door project. And honestly, I like to, for my own personal projects, I don't spend more than 10% on the land acquisition cost, because if you pay too much for land, there's your equity right there. I'll give you a quick real story, Joseph. I had this client, they bought 5 lots, they were contiguous lots for $450,000. 6 months before they bought the lot for $450,000, the buyer had purchased that same lot for $240,000. So there was a $200,000 gap, and so that's where the client's equity went. And people just don't understand that that's where it goes. So those are just my points when it comes to budgets. You have to underwrite how long this project is going to take you, and your acquisition price is everything. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Gilbert. And I want to add something. You brought up a very important subject people avoid, the monthly payment, and it's a contingency fund. You need to set up a separate account on every deal you're doing. Now, again, depending on how long the construction timeline is. So if the renovation's $50,000, I'm just using a number. Technically, $5,000 a week can be spent on a budget with a 3-man crew going in there and busting out. So that's 10 weeks. So let's add 2 or 3 more weeks to that. That's technically 90 days. I'd set up an account for 6 months worth of contingency payments, no matter what, where they could draw that money out separately from any other money that I'm using on indirect or direct costs. And indirect costs are, permits, insurance, site security, crap and giggles. The direct costs are, the impact of the construction, such as labor, materials, equipment rentals, unexpected moving parts to the project that you might not have took into account into the draw schedule. Dissecting this construction budgeting processing, like Gilbert was saying, and part what Emmett was saying, is evident that budget is not just about tracking expenses, but it's a strategic tool to ensure projects are financially feasible, risks are managed, and resources are allocated efficiently. And understanding budgeting is the first step towards successful construction project management, laying the groundwork for projects that are completed within budget, on time, and to the required quality standards. How do you create a good construction budget? You got to define the project's scope and objectives. You got to estimate the project costs. There's labor costs, subcontractor costs, like Justin brought up, material costs, equipment costs, overhead costs, calculated expected profit, factor influencing construction budgets, marketing trends, and material costs. Timing is everything. Do you understand where the market trend is going in your market? Do you understand the rental market in your market? Does that rental market support that property if you don't sell the property? You got to understand the environmental factors and the geographic factors when you're doing land. Very important. Housing, not as much. Then you got to also remember regulatory and compliance costs. Working with the city, working with the neighborhood associations. You piss off the wrong neighbor, they're going to be your worst enemy through the entire project. I'm going to backtrack to Travis. Travis, your thoughts on our discussion this morning, the importance of budget for construction lenders.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I think I like what Gilbert was saying about those costs of making the payment every month. A lot of people definitely underestimate how long it's going to take for a project to get done, and those payments can really start eating into your cash flow or whatever cash you have for the project. Something I was thinking about as these guys were talking is, and you guys brought up some good points about the contractors you're using, is making sure that the contractor also knows how long is it going to take for their part, right? Do they have realistic expectations? And man, I can tell you that right there can really make or break you if you're working with a contractor who tells you one thing, like Gilbert brought up. They think it's only going to take whatever 2 weeks or something, but they're just telling you whatever you want to hear, so that they get the contract, and it ends up taking them a month, 6 weeks. Now you're paying more on your money, and your contract or your project's taking a lot longer. So I just want to add that.
So Travis, where have you seen the biggest mistake in a construction budget this past year? Something that comes to mind. Is it in the mechanicals? Is it in the finish of the walls when you're doing a gut to the studs, flooring? Where has been the biggest miscalculation that you've seen with a client this past year, the past 8 months?
Well, what comes to my mind is when we're getting bids from the contractors, and they tell us one price, and we think it includes all the material costs, and then they come back and they hit us up for something else. Like, no, we still need money for this. Like, oh, I thought that was in your bid. So I think that's the thing that comes to my mind right there.
So the project scope recalibrates, I'll call it, when you come up with a number and then they come back with a different number after you close on the deal, and all of a sudden you have this budget and they're like, hey, listen, that number is not correct. This is going to cost $5,000 more. I mean, like, where do they think that $5,000 is going to come from?
Yeah, obviously it's coming out of the client's pocket, right? That's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a little scary, the moving parts to renovation and new construction. You really have to have a good relationship with a contractor that really understands the chameleon environment. They got to understand the impact to the bottom line. Like, if you don't have that $5,000 sitting in some account, you're in trouble. That's why I always ask every client, do you have unsecured business lines of credit where it doesn't impact your personal credit, where we're not jeopardizing your credit down the road if we have to refinance this property? If you don't sell it. Oh no, I never heard about that. Well, let's set you up with $100,000 in unsecured business lines of credit for the what ifs, the potential maybes, things that could happen, the moving parts. Emmett, some brief thoughts to our conversation following Gilbert and Travis.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest mistakes that I see come up. Is people just not having the right planning, investors not having the right planning when it comes to the cost of the contractor said labor versus materials. The biggest movement that I see is time as well. Putting that property on the market to sell, or if you're going to burn it, you're going to necessarily keep it. Mainly putting that property on the market to sell, especially and knowing your market, because in Detroit it can be block to block, neighborhood to neighborhood, and if you're at a certain price point, which is north of $250,000, and you don't know what your DOM is looking like, your days on market for that particular neighborhood, and did your research, then you're going to sit with that property, especially when you're looking to do this after August and put it on the market, because everybody's back to school, and it's just down the road. And I just can't help but just be reminded about the tour I had, and all the contracting work is done with that modular home, and I don't have to deal with that headache anymore. I just got to deal with the city and prepare my dirt, and that's why I'm shifting towards that way. And land is cheap here in Detroit. That's what I see as a big issue, though, when you're in your construction budget, though. People not planning to put the property on the market to sell at the right time.
Thank you, Emmett. Thank you very much. Gilbert, I want to jump to you real quick. Is there some basic software, some digital solutions that you might suggest for an investor to look at to complement a general contractor, some type of construction reporting, estimation, cost management software, something that schedules construction scheduling tools? Do you have any suggestions, Gilbert?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't have suggestions in that area.
You're breaking up a little bit. Gilbert? I can't hear you, Gilbert. You might want to come in and out. I can't hear you. Travis, do you have any suggestive digital solutions for accurate budgeting requiring, for investors to look at? Are you working on one now currently?
Honestly, no. I mean, we usually use, like spreadsheets, Google spreadsheets or something to put together our budgets and just track where we are, what everything's supposed to cost. I haven't got that sophisticated where I've found a software that, tracks the projects like you would do in software development or something like that. I haven't crossed that yet.
I'd have to touch base with one of my higher level local guys. There's one gentleman, he's working on 5 to 10 projects a quarter. I got to see what software he's using to track all of it. There's no way he's doing it all on a spreadsheet. It would be new. He'd be out of his mind. He wouldn't get any sleep. So I got to find out what he's using so I could put that out there in front of everybody in a further discussion. Artwork. Let's see what artwork. We use Trello and Company Care. Thank you, Stephen. Stephen's a new attendee of our podcast, trying to get a feel. We're going to have him up here very soon. I just wanted him to get an idea how we run this room. It runs a little differently than any other room, I think. So thank you for that, Stephen. Stephen will be coming up in the next sessions next week, which I'm excited about. I just wanted him to get more familiarized with it. And R. Burke, Builder's Trend. Okay, so there's some software that we need to keep in mind. Justin, I know you were on the call. Any thoughts or final thoughts to the importance of budgeting for construction lenders? Justin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Any thoughts and challenges and solutions in construction budgeting?
Yeah, I heard somebody mention Company Cam. Company Cam is something that I use as well. I think, for the more sophisticated bills and stuff, just related to technology this year. You have exact, you have, but that's like stuff, but you also have. There was another one that had the same idea, but there are a couple of examples of I would say for the smaller, the single family builds, to something similar, maybe sophisticated Excel spreadsheet. But I like Company Cam because let's say I can upload my spreadsheet, but I can also keep track and put notes on every item as I take pictures of them, put the prices of them, put a price list in there, send it out to anybody who might need to go shop. So it's convenient, and it has just a budget element to it. But just as far as to budgeting, my thoughts are follow the process and get you a good solid process. If you feel like you need technology or some kind of app or something to help you along, whether that's digitally or not, there are several of them out there. Just go read up on them and see what they to put you.
Thank you, Justin. Guys, great discussion. I want to just finalize how to avoid some construction budgeting pitfalls. I want you to kind of keep this in mind in the back end of this great discussion this morning. I want to thank some of our new guests, and we're going to be adding more new guests over the next couple of weeks as well. Define your budget and your schedule early. Foster proper client communication. Plan for contingencies and learn from your past challenges. So I want to thank our sponsors, of course, Mr. Yurt L. Perkins of Perkatech, our social media architect, to the podcast co-founder, co-sponsor. Please reach out to them with any social media questions, of course. MB Capital, the unsecured business line of product that we provide for investors, contingency money. It's there for you to use and leverage in the commercial veil. I'd like to thank Lendmark Capital, which is I'm a senior loan analyst. I'm an asset-based lender nationwide, providing long-term and short-term money on the DSCR, multifamily, single family to four family, mixed use, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, and new construction. And I'd like to thank Realty 4-in-1 with Miss Linda Pelagas, who provides a national publication for real estate professionals throughout the country, as well as national events, East and West Coast. Next Saturday, we will not be having a room morning. I will be at the STR conference in Kalahari, Poconos. Look forward to presenting on lending impact to the STR and MTR space. We'll be back Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Again, we provide worksheets for our investors to better pencil your deals down, including a construction budget and a draw schedule. So please reach out to me for that. We also provide a CE course for licensed real estate agents in close to 40 states on asset-based lending, and we cover construction in that discussion. It's a 3-credit CE. If you'd like to schedule that at your association or your RIA, please let me know. And if you don't know, we have a great website with almost 60 podcasts already at this point at creativeburststrategies.com, which is the link above. Be part of this great educational platform where we're providing consistent theme of education, networking, and strategy. My quote this morning, I always like to finish off with a quote. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps become a plan. Backed by action becomes a reality. Everybody have a beautiful Sunday morning. Take care of yourself, and I will be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. And thank you.